Welcome to the Quilt Show, everybody. On today's show, we have a colorful international guest, and I'm not going to tell you where she's from, but here's a hint.
Welcome to the Quilt Show. We just couldn't tear ourselves away.
So we're still here at the United States Air Force Academy Cadet Chapel. Alex, the colors and the stained glass that are in this chapel are really perfect for our guest today on the Quilt Show.
Oh, I mean, look at her quilts. They're just beautiful, so bright with color.
And we're gonna have her up in just a moment, but I wanted to take a moment at the top of the show to share with you some quilting designs that I find that are fun to do, and they're improvisational, so you don't have to mark your quilt.
It's all about feathers, and if feathers collide, it's how to tuck them. Very
Absolutely,
cool.
And I like the way you said collide. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna show you basically what I do to draw a feather. And one of the things, now I apologize I'm having to do this sort of on my, I can't draw it upside down. But the shape that I want people to learn for sure is this sort of, it's like a crook or a half of a heart.
Okay.
It's like a shepherd's cane, although it's bending a little bit more. If you get that shape, you'll be able to do the feathers. Now when I do my feathers, what I do is I start from the top of the spine and I draw down to what I consider the bottom. And then I do my first, there's the crook, up and around and down.
I've never heard it that way. I like that a lot.
Now, the first one is a full sort of teardrop thing, but the rest of them you backtrack up and then do that little cane or half heart. You backtrack up and you come around and down for all of these.
Now that's, you're saying you backtrack up. That's if you were sewing.
Yes, and
okay.
I am actually doing this the way I will sew it in just a moment, but I wanted everybody to see how I do it while I'm drawing it. When I get to the top, I come back down to create the second side of that spine. That is because people try to start their feathers at the top and come back down, and it gets, I can't tell you how.
They get cuckoo.
It gets totally cuckoo. So now that I'm back to the bottom, I'll reach around and down for that one, and then it's backtrack, and we're still doing that same shape over and over and over. Now this is just the generic feather that I do when I'm doing my free motion machine quilting, but this is not the trick I'm after.
Okay, excuse me, do you pre-draw the original?
No,
you just do it on the machine?
Yeah, if it's really a long stem that I'm gonna do, I might mark that. But otherwise, this is improvisational. Now when I get here, rather than stopping, I might wanna stipple. I'll just start stippling, because I know I'm gonna do some filler later. I just wanna get to a new spot, okay? And when I get to a new spot, then I can come down and give myself another spine. This is the trick that I want to show today. Rather than doing a feather that avoids this feather, I want to do a feather that bumps into the feather. It's actually not only going to bump into it, but it's going to look like it's tucked under or behind the first feather that I drew. So I'm going to start by doing the same thing you've already seen, but now I'm going to backtrack, and this time I'm going to go back over that line and then come in with the rest of that feather. Come back up, I have to backtrack over, come down, come back. I may have to kind of spin up a little bit, come down.
Do you use this a lot or not?
Oh, this is great, absolutely. And then back down, and now I'm in a spot whereas if I keep going, I'm not gonna have to do any more of that backtracking. And you can now see, just by using that first half, and of course I come back down to the spine and work on the other side, but you can see how this feather looks like it's tucked under the other. And here's the real trick. If you accomplish that, the more feathers you have, the less stipple you have to do.
Well, of course, because
takes a long time. I mean, filling in all the gaps takes a while. So if you'll fill in with more feathers, you have less stippling to do. Now I'm gonna show it on the machine, okay?
Great.
Okay. So basically I've got the machine set up. I've got yellow thread on yellow fabric because I want the quilting to show. So I'm not looking to have a contrasting thread at this point. Now, I've already done some of the stitching, but I'm gonna come around and I'm gonna do some stipple just to get started. And then I'm gonna do the top of my feather and work my way all the way down to the bottom of my feather. And before I go any further, I'm gonna put on my glasses. That's right, because I wanna see what I'm doing. So now I'm gonna do everything that you've just seen me do by drawing, and I'm going to do those back tracks. Of course, I'm not going to say I'm going to do the very best work standing up.
Well, you're doing quilting gymnastics right now.
I am doing quilting gymnastics. I would say don't try this at home. But as I get now going into that feather that I'm starting to see, if I want that to come out and go around, I've just now bumped into one of the previous stitches, so I need to slowly work my way along that so that there's no gaps. And now I can come back down.
I'm going to have to look at your quilts a lot closer because you really say you use this on a lot of your quilts?
Yeah, especially in some of the more recent quilts because I got smart. I got smart where I don't have to spend so much time on marking the quilt and on stippling.
Well, I think this is much more fanciful than stippling by a long shot. I mean, really.
I'm going to go run into this one right here.
Okay.
I think I want to come up to there, do a little bit of that.
You know, feathers are so much fun because you can do so many wonderful things with them. I remember the time I learned to turn a 90 degree. I was like, wow, you can turn a 90 degree with feathers, so you can do anything with feathers. You
really can, and the thing is, it's such a classic design. And as we've watched over the years on the quilt show, some of the long armors that come in and show us their magic, we've seen so many different ways to do all this. Let me cut my thread real quick and I'm going to show you what I've just done and then point out some other aspects of this particular piece. So here's the one I just did, the half of the side. And here's where I went backtracking over so that these feathers look like they're tucked in the previous one. Now the one you do first is always going to look like it's on top.
Of course.
It's the subsequent ones that look like it's under. Now here's an area, let me get to it, right in here, where I did this feather over here, and I did this feather over here. I did this feather over here, and then I did this feather over here, and you can see this one in the middle, behind, 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 and over here, it's behind and behind and behind. So honestly, they don't have to be any particular size. Some people think that as they gradate down the spine, these should all be big and they should all get gradually smaller.
Right.
A fern doesn't do that. If it gets more water and sunshine, it suddenly bursts out and then it loses its sunshine and water and it comes in. So you can really let them be more organic. When you want to make a perfect feather, you're probably going to draw it and you're going to mark it. But if you want something to be more whimsical and fun, this is a great way to make it happen.
I want to give that a try, so thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I'm excited about today's show. It's all about color.
I am too. And you're not going to want to miss our international guest today. All the way from the Netherlands, it's Miss Jacqueline de Jonge.
Stick around. Welcome back. I just want to take a moment before we introduce today's guest, yay, to really talk just briefly about how much I have changed over the last 4 years of working with you and being exposed to all these wonderful guests.
Well, and I'd say I've changed as well. I think that's just part of the creative process. If you're staying the same, you're probably getting stagnant. And both of us, Alex and myself, are sort of on this journey where we want to explore, we want to try things new, and we want to do some things that are different. So with you, it's been machine quilting.
Yes, getting to bond as one with my machine, and I just loved seeing those feathers. And I just want to tell you guys all at home, I have Ricky's DVD Grand Finale, and I just want to say that if you don't have this and have been considering it, I can say it, you can't, right? I get it. It's 2 hours of everything from A to Z when it comes to quilting.
Yeah, absolutely. Once the quilt top is done, this DVD takes you from basting the quilt all the way up to finishing the quilt, binding the quilt.
Binding the whole bit. So anyways, okay, I just can't hardly stand it any longer. Let's go take a look at the quilt and then introduce today's guest.
All right, so welcome to the Quilt Show, Miss Jacqueline de Jonge. From the Netherlands.
Yay!
Hello.
Hello,
How
Ricky.
are you?
We're your studio audience today.
Well, thank you so much.
So what do you think of the Air Force Academy?
Oh, it's amazing. Yes, I saw the parade and it was beautiful. But if you are here and you see this beautiful chapel, oh my gosh, this suits with my quilts. Glass and
It's your colors.
They're my colors. It's a perfect place.
Well, we're talking about colors, but we're looking at one of your quilts right here that may not be as colorful as some we're going to see. So tell us about this quilt.
Yeah, what I did with this quilt here, there is another one, an original quilt. Flowers, very traditional, red, soft green, and I like it. But I also know that that pattern has more in it than only that traditional part, so I try to change that. And this is the new one. And I must say that I really, really like it. It is more vibrant, it's more chic, it is different than the original. But here you can see what you can do with fabrics. If you see a pattern, not only mine or from someone else, you can pick your own colors, pick your own fabric, and do something very new with it.
Now, I want to ask about the Netherlands before we move on to the quilts. You live in Holland.
Yes, I do.
A lot of quilters there. What's going on?
I think we have about 27,000 quilters.
Wow.
Not as many. Not many
That's
as
still
you
a
have
lot.
here.
That's a lot.
Well, we are a small country, but we have some. But quilting in the Netherlands is extremely expensive. Well, for example, fabric in the Netherlands is, compared to the euro and the dollar, I think we pay $27 for a yard.
Wow.
So that is different. Our tools, we have the same fabric, we have the same tools, but everything is much more expensive. So for us, it is a more expensive hobby for a lot of people.
Do you come stateside with an empty suitcase?
The first time, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did. I bought so much fabric, and I was traveling with my brother, and he could not believe how much fabric I bought. So he's used to it now.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
You have to have fabric if you're going to make quilts, right?
Well, yeah, and let's talk about this quilt
Let's do.
here.
Come on
Come
over.
on over. This is, I mean, okay, that's a look, and this is a totally different
Yes.
look.
This is me.
Yes, it is
Okay,
you. This
this
is what
is
I'm
me.
used to seeing.
Yes.
Yes.
This is, I love to work with colors. It is more, how do you say that? You can put more from yourself in it. And if you make this beautiful transition and you use the color wheel, and when you use the color wheel, you have only 24 fabric colors that you need. Because when you have yellow and you have orange, there are two colors between it. The yellow-orange and the orange-yellow, and then you go to orange. And if you look close to the details of the quilt, you can see the transition. It goes all the way from the yellows to the orange yellows, to the oranges, and there you see there is the transition. So a lot of people are afraid for colors, but if you use that concept, it will work for everybody.
Right, and I noticed that if you went to the other side of the spike, you also have a color transition from the blue into the purple
Yes.
into the red. So you're kind of playing those two
Absolutely.
against each other.
It's a challenge, it's a game, it is looking for the right fabric, looking for the right spot, looking for that piece that will fit. Some fuzzy cutting is needed, but you play and you are addicted.
Is this typical of what I might find in the Netherlands?
Absolutely not.
No.
No. I think in the Netherlands they are afraid for colors. Not everybody, of course, but a lot of people are afraid. They like more the brown and beige, and more the dark blues, the burgundy reds, the golds. That is more what the Netherlands offer. So for me, this is my...
Right. Well, my question is, though, do you find that people are making quilts more for utility purposes for home decor, so they don't want those bright colors in their home for decor?
Yeah.
But if they start thinking like an artist and thinking more in that, with the piece being what it is, they may not be quite as afraid of color.
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now here we have a variation of this particular quilt. Is this what you're talking about that might be more typical?
Yes. This is more typical, probably not the design, but the colors are more typical what the Dutch will use. The more faded colors, I can tell you, when I make this quilt, it was for the Hoffman Challenge in 2009.
This one?
This one. And this is the Hoffman Challenge fabric, and I can tell you, that was my challenge, because brown and beige are not my colors. So when
So that was your personal challenge.
That was my personal challenge, absolutely. And I make these two stars, and I was done with it. Oh, I was so bored.
But
so,
you know, congratulations for doing it.
Yes.
I mean, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to set this one aside.
I decided that will be my next project, and it's the same, but that was a quarter of that quilt.
It's really, really pretty.
And then come on over with me, Ricky. You can squeeze in there. Now we're back to your look.
Yeah.
Tell us about this.
Oh, I think this is everybody's favorite. You have the color wheel, you have the transitions, and a lot of people, again, are afraid of that color wheel. But if you look at that, you can see how bright it looks and how you can play with your Yeah, that is the color wheel.
Yeah.
So it is a challenge for a lot of people. And you know, the sewing part is not the difficult part, but I think picking the right fabrics. And when you do that, you put it in front of you and you just put your squares just over there and you see, oh, that one is too light, that one is too dark, just change it. And that makes it so much easier to do.
Wow.
So.
We've got a couple of quilts
more
here. We're going to play show and tell by holding these up.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Alex and I will hold them up, and if Jacqueline, if you will just tell us about them. That is beautiful.
Yeah, this is my rainbow star. And again, here you can see we make beautiful transition from the yellows and the oranges into the reds, all the way under it, because I love to play with the shapes, with the curves. Well, playing with color is not only it's not only a challenge and it's hard working, but it is a pleasure and it makes you happy.
And then here we have batiks. Now these are commercial, they're not hand dyed, correct?
No,
That we've been
I
looking
never
at?
work with
hand dyed.
fabric.
Okay,
No.
look at this one, Ricky, batiks.
Wow.
Is this right side up? No. There we go.
Yes. Yeah, I find this fabric many, many years ago. This marbled fabric, and I loved it so much. I hang it on my wall, and I was looking at it, and sometime I have ideas, and they come up in my head, and I draw them on a piece of paper, and I start with the quilts, and this is it. So I love the curves, and I love the circles and the stars. So, well, this is the right place to show them, of course.
It is
Yes,
the right place
yes.
to show them. And when we come back, I know that Jacqueline's going to spend some time with you, Alex, right?
Yes.
Because it's not uncommon at the United States Air Force Academy to see the stars and stripes, but when we come back on the Quilt Show, we're going to see the stars and spikes. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. We met Jacqueline in Houston and we said you just have to be on the show to show us your magic ways. And little did I know that, Jacqueline, you've got dozens and dozens of patterns. And they're on your website.
Yes.
And the name of the website is?
www.becolorful.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now this is not a pattern, but you prepared this for us today.
Yes.
And it really highlights the basics of what your patterns are about.
Yes, it shows the colors, it shows the stars, the art that you have here. So everything what you see in my quilts are we showing here today.
Perfect. You work, it's foundation paper piecing, right? But you have developed a really cool paper that, let's tell us about it.
Yeah, it has two sides, a dull side here and a shiny side. And it doesn't matter which side you use just one side for your quilt. You trace them. You bring your marks onto the paper and you see the paper is very thin, it's very flexible and it's easy to tear away. What you also do, you cut it.
Feel this. That is nice, huh?
It's very nice.
It's
really, really nice to work with. So when you trace it with a pen, not a pencil or a Sharpie, just trace it with a normal pen. That makes more clear and it works very well. The lines are very thin, and when you start, you cut it exactly onto the lines, because when you have paper in your seams, when you're working on it, it's so hard to get the paper out of your quilt. So you add the fabric onto the piece when you're sewing it, and that makes it so much easier. And that's what I'm going to show you.
Great. Now let's go over to the sewing machine here, and you can just nestle down into your chair.
Yeah.
In your patterns, do you tell people what to pre-cut the fabrics?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, and what's the concept behind that?
The concept is that when you have strips in a certain white, you can use the pieces also for the reverse one. And that makes it so much easier, and it's almost, it's also cheaper. What I tell you before, fabric in the Netherlands is extremely expensive.
Okay.
So we use the pieces twice, almost.
Okay, well let's just get this right down here. And then the first piece you put on is what color?
Yeah. First thing what you do is, what is my spike, what is my background? So what you do, you put them on top of each other. If you do it like this, you create your first mistake. Because now, when you put it on top of it, you see your spike is black and your background will be yellow.
Oh no.
We don't want that. So what we do, just on top of each other, and the colorful color is on top. And because the paper is thin. You can look through the paper and you see that I have a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. You can see it right here.
Let me hold this up to the camera because this really is wonderful, wonderful paper. It's just a little bit of an odd angle, but you really can see right through there, which is excellent. Less waste, right?
Yes, less waste. So what you do, I love to start with a reverse stitch. I don't know why, but it secures my stitches and that makes it so much better to work with. So what you do, just get my foot. I do my reverse stitch first. Yeah. Start on the top and then go all the way down. And you stitch exactly on the lines because that is important.
And then do you tighten up your stitch length too?
Yeah, it's about a 2, 2.5.
Okay.
Because I want to use my seam ripper when I make mistakes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
I do make mistakes.
Okay.
So what you do, the first thing, you finger press. And when you finger press, just be sure that you don't leave any fabric in the seam. That is so important for your spike. So finger press. When you finish your entire arc, you can press it or iron it, that's okay, but you finger press first. Your next step, put your nails onto this line and you fold the paper and you give it a rough cut.
Okay. You got the pink ones? Okay, there you go.
The pink ones. And just like this. That is all you have to do. You go back, you take your new piece of fabric, and the only thing that you have to do, when it is a screen print fabric, for example, you look to stars or something. And this is the right side of your fabric.
I'll get that presser foot up for you. There you go.
Yeah, thank you. And the only thing that you do, you just put it on top of each other. So this is the piece with the right side on top, and this is what you do. You go back to your machine.
That little back stitch again, huh?
Oh, yes.
Just put on the gas, and there you go. Yes.
It's a fast machine.
This is a puppy. This is a fast puppy.
It's a very fast machine, but I think I like it. And exactly, when you are there in the center, you just stop, reverse your stitch.
And so it goes.
And so it goes.
But now I want to talk about that stack of fabric over there because that's not just willy-nilly stacked up, is it?
No. What you do first, when I cut my pieces, I just put them in order. And this is my color wheel. So what you do, this is the 3rd color. And here is the 4th.
Oh, beautiful.
And here you can see there is a little transition already. And when you do that before you start, it is so easy because you can't make the mistake that you mess up your fabric.
Now
so
you said in the Netherlands, excuse me, this is not the colors that they typically use. But what do your friends think? The people that know you?
Oh, my best friends don't like my quilt.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. When I work on my quilt and I just show her my fabric and I'm so proud that, oh, I find so beautiful fabric. And she said, show me. Oh, she said, I don't like that.
Oh, well, you know what? I'll be your friend. Hand me the wheel over there and come on over here and let's show everybody. Obviously, you've done, I'll get this out of the way. You've done a lot of work here before taping and now it's like you've got a bunch of fabric that you have to deal with?
Yes.
Okay, and paper.
And paper. And we have a very rough seam. So what do you do with your rough seam?
Let me move this. Okay.
So this is the piece, well, when you're almost finished, this is how it looks like. You will see the paper, you see the marks, but we have a very rough seam. So how do we do that? There is a very, very easy way to make a beautiful 1/4 of an inch. Of course, you can trim it, and if you are professional enough, you can do it just on your rotary cutter and your mat, and you can do it. But if you're not that professional, did I say something wrong?
No, no. If you're if you are professional enough, I'm not. Okay.
Oh, well, I show you how it will work.
Here, bring that over here, or do you have? Oh, you're going to do it on the machine.
I do it on my machine.
I get it.
Yes. What I do, I have a piece of paper, just normal paper from the printer, and what you do, you put this on top of it, and the paper stabilizes your piece.
Is it so like it doesn't stretch bias or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, and then you're going to stitch it a 1/4 inch.
And I stitch a perfect 1/4 of an inch next to the paper. You don't need to worry that it's a stretch or something like that. And here you see, you have a perfect 1/4 of an inch.
And if you didn't put the paper under, then probably it would stretch a little bit?
So this is so much easier to do. And for me, it always worked that way.
Do you want me to cut it?
Yeah.
There you go, right there. And then do you just tear off the back paper?
Well, yeah.
I'm getting ahead of, the cart's getting ahead of the horse right here.
Now, well, we only do a little piece here. So what you do when you have done your entire piece, you cut exactly on the lines and you remove that stitch. And when you do that, you see, you have a perfect 1/4 of an inch. And that makes it so easy. The next step, when you have done that, you bring your marks onto the fabric. And you can do that with a little tiny marker.
What do you mean you bring your marks onto it?
Well, we have marked because this piece here belongs in these corner parts.
Oh, okay. Let me hold this up. Let me hold this up.
Yeah.
So let me hold this up here.
So,
what are you talking about here?
Yeah. You have the little, you have this piece here, the corner parts, and you have here this arch, and these have to fit together. When you don't bring your marks onto the fabric, it is so hard to get a curve because you keep going on and it never will fit. But if you have your little marks here, you can see them here. If you have the little marks, just bring them onto the paper, from the paper onto the fabric, and these marks will fit with the arch and the other pieces as well. So that makes it so much easier to work with. So that's how I work with my curves.
Okay, but we're not done yet, right?
No.
No, there's more to come. When we come back, she's actually going to show us how to really set, you're going to really do it, right?
Yes, I do.
Awesome. Stick around. Welcome back. We're at the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs with Jacqueline, and she has prepared this great little sample, and you're showing us how to construct it.
Yes.
Now, in the last segment, she had a really cool way to do the spikes, okay, but now you get your whole spike thing done, and it's about setting this curve in, and some people are freaked out about curves.
Yes.
They don't need to be.
No, they don't need to be, because if you do what I do, it is so easy and fast. So what you do, you cut your arch from the paper exactly on the lines. But your next step is this, a perfect 1/4 of an inch. On this side here, also a perfect 1/4 of an inch, and you focus on the 1/4 of an inch line of on your ruler.
Can I stop 1 second here? I want to note that you have taped this down.
Yeah.
That's fairly important. This inside arch, you just put a little bit of tape on it.
I tape my pieces, and why? Because it makes it so much easier when I use my ruler on top of the
It doesn't
piece.
slip.
It doesn't slip. So for me, that's important. Another thing that is important, that I can turn this. So, and that makes it also a little bit easier. This here is also a perfect 1/4 of an inch.
Now, are you going to tape the outside too?
No, you don't have to. Because what we do on the outside is not a perfect 1/4 of an inch, but more. So we do, let's say, 1/2 an inch.
Okay, why?
Why? Because when you stitch it together, the pieces, you're running out of fabric in the seam allowance, and that was a problem for me. So I say, if I adjust a little bit more fabric in the seam allowance, I solve my own problem. So that's why I do. So this is, and you see, you don't have to be extremely precise.
This is somewhere between Ricky and myself. This is somewhere between precision and caveman.
Yeah, well, you can, yeah, probably that's something. Okay, the first thing what you do, you bring your marks onto the fabric. The little marks.
And the marks are on the pattern.
The marks are on the pattern, just for the inner rim, not for the outer rim, because what we do, you put this away. You take your piece. We don't need this.
And you cut all 4 at once because it's in a quadrant, this quilt.
Yeah, you layer your fabric. So this is our piece. And you see here, I bring my marks onto the fabric, but I do something else. When you are working with your paper, you don't need the paper, because the paper is only needed for making your piece, but not for assembling the piece. So if you remove the paper, and of course here you can see you bring your marks onto the fabric, you remove the paper, and you also can see how easy you remove the paper.
Now that's interesting, because I always thought you had to leave the paper in.
I know, that's a nightmare.
I know.
So if you...
I think it's how I taught it on an episode here.
Oh, my goodness. So you have a very flexible piece, no paper, and it makes it so much easier for pinning and sewing.
Okay.
So what you do, I have the little small applique pins. So I take a bunch, and the first thing that you do is just line them up, just like this, exactly on the line here.
Let me hold this up to the camera so people can see. They are kissing perfectly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what
Why don't you hold that down like that, and then they can probably get a pretty good shot of it.
Yeah, if you do it like this, and a little pin over here. You go to the other side of your piece. You do the same. Just line them up. Then you have the perfect line. And then you go back to the little marks.
Oh, how perfect. How perfect.
That you put on the piece. This is one of them.
So it doesn't get weird on you or anything.
No. So you have only, if you do it like this, only have to ease these small pieces of fabric in. And when you do that, you see the marks fits perfectly on top of each other.
Are you self-taught on this?
Yeah, and I know there are so many different ways of how you can do this, but for me it works always. And if you look at my fingers right now, I use my fingers and my thumbs, and my fingers
Here, I'm going to turn you just like this.
Yeah.
To hand.
Okay, you see my fingers, they're behind the piece, and I put my thumbs on top of each other, and I just move it upwards, and I can go this way or that way or a little bit down, but I stretch it a little bit, and you see it's perfectly, it fits very well. I hold it in place, and I pin it. And these little, small, tiny applique pins give my little piece the maximum flexibility that I want to. If you use the big flower pins that some people use, that makes it so hard. So if you do this...
Where does somebody find these pins?
Oh, you can find them in your local quilt store.
How about your website?
No, not on the website.
Because I don't think I've seen these before. Now you've started a quest here. What do they ask for specifically?
I use the little clover applique pins.
Perfect, that's what I wanted to hear.
Yes, and they're always very fine. I like the little thin white heads. They're easy to pick with your nails. And here you can see how easy and how fast you can work with these curves.
I like to pin. To me, it's just the ounce of prevention goes a long way.
Yeah, for me this works always, and it's not a big deal when you have not a paper, you have the maximum flexibility in your piece, and you sew it.
Okay, so let's go over to the machine.
Let's see if it works.
And I will get your scissors out of the way.
Yeah, because we don't need that right now. Let's see.
Okay, now hold on. You're not doing the spiky side up?
No, this is my flat side. And that makes it so much easier.
Okay, but look, I'm really curious on this, because if you sew on this side, you can see this, but if you do a really good 1/4 inch, it doesn't matter?
You don't matter, because you have that perfect 1/4 of an inch.
Wow.
So for me, it's easier to do it on this way.
Okay.
This is flat and so much easier to use. But what I also use, I use my seam ripper.
Okay.
My seam ripper is, well, is my finger. And it can almost, oh no.
Oh, I can help you out here.
Yeah.
This
is a new machine.
I have to give you kudos. She's new on this machine.
Yeah.
And I think you're just doing a terrific job.
Okay, let's see.
So just, there you go.
I remove my little pin here and I do my reverse stitch. That is something that I always do. And here you can see that I use my seam ripper. And I
it's like your stiletto is what it's like.
It is. And that makes it so much easier. You can pull the fabric away a little bit to have that perfect curve.
And I want to point out to everyone that Jacqueline is not like, whew, I mean, she's taking her time.
Yeah, I do.
Which is why she gets the results.
It's not a race.
No.
And if you make quilts like I do, the more complicated ones, then you need time. You need some time.
As you stitch this now, I want to ask you, how long have you been doing this?
I started in 1978.
Okay.
And I think I can, well,
Just so it'll go.
yeah.
One of the great things about this machine, or the thing you have to get used to, is it doesn't have a presser foot lift in the back. So you start sewing and it does the work for you. And I'm proud of you here.
It's a different machine.
Oh, but I love mine.
This is your machine?
Actually, it's Ricky's. Mine's at home. Yeah, I have
Okay.
one.
So when I learn on this machine, I can make his beautiful Rhapsody quilts.
Or how about a beautiful Alex Anderson quilt?
Yeah, that's something.
She didn't mention that.
Well,
Ricky, get in here. Save me.
Well, it's not about saving. I'm coming to defend myself all of a sudden. Yes, Jacqueline, absolutely you can make a Rhapsody
Yeah.
quilt. And when you get your color sense on it and all your little extra special designs, it will be stunning. That is
Yeah.
for sure.
well,
But look at how slow and meticulous she's going on this. And I think that's something really worth pounding
Well,
on.
I think, yes, everybody has to find exactly what works for them.
yeah, and a different machine, another machine is a challenge.
Oh, sure. Well, you're
So-
doing an A+ job, lady.
An A+.
Yes.
Okay, I can handle that. Okay, and my reverse stitch.
Da-da-da-da-da, and the reverse stitch.
There's your cut.
So,
I'm just concerned because you're so shy of color. I think,
Yeah, right. We're going to have to work on that
Work
to
on
help you get a little more
Okay,
color
let
confidence.
me show this to everyone. This is just beautiful. Look at that.
All right, so we're coming to an end. What's the next little step
yeah,
here?
I press my piece.
Uh-huh.
Is it on? Is my... It's not on.
Here we go. You can take that over there.
Yeah. I have to make it... No, it's not working.
Well, you know how the irons get cold if
Well,
you don't
here
let
it
them
is
do their
pressed.
thing.
Here it is
Here's one
pressed.
pressed. Yeah.
Okay.
Here's one that's pressed.
That's one pressed. That's one that it's finished. So what you do, say we have pressed this piece.
Uh-huh.
So our next step is how we get rid of that extra 1/4 of an inch. So now you use the piece again. And what you do, you bring this back onto the
That's
piece.
great.
The extra 1/4 inch on the outside edge, and that way you
Yeah.
got something to trim with because
Yeah.
it's
You
that
mark
is
it.
cool.
And you do it like this, you mark it, and you can do it, you can mark it with all different ways. Bring your marks onto the fabric, remove it, and then you can trim it, and then you will left with a beautiful piece, just like this here. A perfect arch with a perfect 1/4 of an inch seam.
Okay, so when you marked it just now and you
Yeah.
put the mark using the paper, when you trim it, you trim a 1/4 inch away from that mark. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yeah.
So that you have your seam allowance.
Yeah.
And then I want to point out here that basically it's done in it's done in quadrants, correct? So why don't you point that out, Ricky, there, and then divide it the other way.
So
Yeah.
there really is a seam all the way out to here.
Yeah.
Now, not on your border, you've added that differently,
Right.
but right there, there's
Yes.
a seam. Wow.
Yay! So what do you think, Ricky?
I think it's very exciting. Congratulations.
Well, thank you so
That
much.
was really great. And I know
It
that
works for me.
everyone in the Quilt Show audience is going to absolutely love that as well.
Well, it's an easy trick, and and it works for many of my quilts. So I love to do that.
Thank you for being with us today.
You're welcome.
I just have to ask, you have all these wonderful patterns and they're
Yes.
available on your site. It's Be
Yeah.
Colorful, spelt with a U and
A U,
colorful,
yes.
right?
European.
COLOUR-FUL,
FUL.
becolorful.com.
Yeah.
Good.
Is there a book anywhere coming?
Yeah, I'm writing a book.
Who are you working with?
AQS.
Excellent.
Nice.
I signed a
Excellent.
contract.
Thank you so
Yay,
much.
we like signed contracts.
Thank you so much
much
for joining us today. We also want to thank the United States Air Force Academy for allowing us to use this spectacular space. We hope that you've enjoyed the day, and you have to remember,
It's a new day.
every day.
There's always something in Afterset, so stick around.
Jacqueline, we want to talk a little bit about your, I guess, your involvement in how you got into quilting and your sense of design. And you said it really comes from your mom?
Yes, my mother was a great artist. She was a beautiful painter. She made beautiful watercolors and aquarelle pictures. Amazingly good. Unfortunately, 2 years ago she had a stroke, so she's not painting anymore, and that frustrates her. But I just get her into my room, and we just look through the fabric together, and she comes up with little ideas that I can use.
What does she think of your color sensibility?
She loves it.
Perfect.
She loves it.
That's good.
Yes. She said when she was younger that was something that she can do. But what I say before, fabric in the Netherlands is extremely expensive and they cannot afford that. So for them, painting was her expression.
Well, and the Netherlands have such a history of fine painters. That's a really, really a wonderful way to express yourself.
Now, I understand this isn't your day job.
No, this is absolutely not my day job. I work in a hospital. I work as a cardiologist, how do you say that?
Cardiologist?
A cardiologist secretary. And I work there for 4 days in a week. And I had a sabbatical this year, so I travel a lot. I've been to Australia, Canada, America several times, and I have a lot of fun, but this is not my daytime job.
Yet.
No.
Yet. We're going to get you there.
Probably, but let's see
what
how
about your
everything goes.
Yeah, to your sewing companion.
Yeah. My sewing companion, that is Mr. Pookie. Mr. Pookie is a white Siamese. It's a foreign white Siamese, and he is the most adorable, irresistible cat you'd ever seen. It's Siamese, and they have attitude.
Oh yes, they do.
It's a wonderful cat. He wants a hot water bottle. And why, when I quilted my quilt, my hands, he always jumped onto the hoop.
Oh,
and
that's a fact.
Yes.
that's a fact. He wanted to sit on my lap, but he was not able to do so. After many times, I just put him on the ground. He come back and jump on the hoop. So I had what can I do? So I take a kitchen chair, I take a hot water bottle, and I put Mr. Pookie on top of that hot water bottle, and he is so happy.
Oh.
But now he demands his hot water bottle. Oh yes, because when I go to my job, my parents and I, we live in the same apartment building. He stays with my parents at home, so I have my little baby, yes. And he walks to them, they open the door, and at 7:30 his hot water bottle is in front of the window. So yes, he is a very extremely spoiled cat.
Oh, but you know what? The people that have been watching today, many of them have loved you, and many of them now love you even more because you're a cat lover, obsessed with your cat even, right?
Yeah, I'm obsessed. But I think that is because my grandmother breathed cats, Siamese cats, and I think that's why my love for these Siamese cats came from. But he is the most irresistible cat.
That's great.
Thank you for coming so far to be here. We so appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really enjoy this. Thank you.
It's been great.
Thank you so much.
I love it.